So the following are some pictures and photos showing what we did. All right, the team did. As they went onto the track, just now I mentioned about third rail gauging. Now this is an example of third rail gauging where they actually had to put a device to measure the relative location of the third rail. Third rail is by the side here. This is a third rail cover. And the third rail actually is sitting within the cover itself. So we're measuring relative location of that relative to the running rail. Next picture. Okay, this is another a slide showing how we actually go through taking a device to actually measure. And we did this basically at locations where we suspect we saw missing claws, more missing claws than anything else. And really went into detail and that's why it took a bit of longer time rather than just a normal casual visual inspection. Okay, this is the famous claw that we were talking about. Okay, this is a typical bracket that actually supports a third rail. Okay, what you see in this picture, here's a third rail cover. Third rail cover is nothing more than just to protect the maintenance personnel from accidentally coming into contact with the third rail. The third rail itself is, you can see, is actually this piece of material that runs across. Okay, here.
And this is usually covered.
And this typically is actually covered. So for the purpose of inspection, we have to remove the cover. What you've seen here is with the cover removed. And this also took some effort and we went through each bracket, and which are spaced about 6.3 meters apart. Okay. Yes. Okay, later I will give you a show about this device. Okay.
You want to point out the claw to them. You haven't pointed out the claw.
So basically, this part of the third rail assembly is actually the bracket that actually supports the whole mechanism. Then we have the insulator, and then following the insulator, we have this piece which is called a jaw. Okay, this jaw actually sticks up and it's actually fastened to the assembly via bolts. So these parts are fairly secure. Now the part that we had a little bit of problem is this claw. Okay, this is a claw.
Okay, this
okay?
This
which
is
if you look at the picture there, that's the claw, right? So what happened is that this claw, in some instances, they were either dislodged or in some cases were actually missing. Okay, missing in the means they've actually dropped onto the track. Next picture in the slide, I will show you what a missing claw there. There you see that in this instance, in the picture, I'm sorry. Here you have the jaw here, but then the claw is actually missing now. Okay, so the claw has actually somehow dropped onto the track. Okay, and we found that the numbers were as I've showed just now, and those were in the areas that we found a cluster of them. Right. Next. So these were not everyone, but this is to show that a number of them were found in the City Hall to Marina Bay areas. Okay, for example, in the southbound between Raffles Place and Marina Bay, we had 7 missing claws here. Between City Hall area to down to Raffles Place, 1, and then over on this side, northbound. Okay, the rest of the southbound were spread all over, but here is just to show you where there's seem to appear a concentration of cluster of this missing claws. Next slide. Now, what about the train side? On the train, we found that overall a total of 13 trains were affected in terms of having a current collector device. We call this is
including the trains on Thursday and Saturday.
Yes, and this includes the total. This is actually the total for both incidents, all right, including the Thursday incident. So a total of 13 defective trains, and these are the respective numbers. 5 numbers have totally have 12 of these current collector shoes dislodged. Okay, just to give you an idea, a train comprises 6 cars, right? And each car on each side has 2 current collectors. Okay, each side has 2 current collectors. So in the total, a car has 4 current collectors. But at any one time, usually one side of the current collectors of the train will be actually fed from the same power source, because they're all running off the same third rail. So as a result, it's not surprisingly that where there's incident that happened, in some instances, all 12 have been dislodged. Dislodged means they've been broken. I'll show you slides what I mean by broken or dislodged current collector device. And one train we had 10, one train had 9, and then the rest are variable numbers. All right. So this is an indication of the extent of the defective trains that were affected by the 2 incidents. Okay, and remembering we have 123 trains available, and this is 13 out of 123. Okay, next. Yesterday at the presentation, I showed a picture of a current collector. This is the whole current collector assembly, and it's really fastened to the bogie. The bogie is the one which contains the rail and the axle, the wheels and the axle. So here is the actual current collector device that comes into contact with the third rail. Okay, it's a bottom contact with the third rail, which I explained yesterday. So what did we find yesterday? Next. We found that in some cases, on the left picture on the left, it shows that there was a clean cut in the weak link between that was actually providing the actual device, the current collector, that was actually supporting the current collector itself. So there was some that were totally broken off. In some cases, this was an interesting picture where we found that it was not broken off to the extent of being totally dislodged, but actually was still left hanging. So we were also thinking that this could be reason why we found scratches in some areas, because these trains were being sent back to the depot with some of these current collector devices not in the proper condition, but it were dangling because of damages that were suffered in the course of the two incidents. Okay, so next. So this just gives you a schematic of what the current collector is about. The part that just now I showed about the broken part is actually cut over here. It's called a weak link. There's a design for a weak link in the current collector shoe assembly, which is meant to actually break the current collector shoe in the event that it hits an obstacle. Okay, and this device and this weak link is made of fiberglass. And in the design, there's a certain pressure, okay, that will allow the shoe to be actually moved up to 33 mm downwards vertically. Displacement from normal position. Nominal position is where you will contact with the running with the third rail under normal operating condition. So it's allowed to move further downwards by another 33 mm. Beyond that, then there's possibility that breakage will happen. Okay, so this is the current collector. Next. Now let me touch a bit about floating slab track and why is it relevant to the presentation today. Okay, in certain areas in the city, where there are sensitive buildings, where there are buildings that our tunnels run through, and we want to prevent vibrations from being transmitted to the buildings. In the early phase, we normally get a consultant to do the study and recommendation to find ways to prevent the train running vibrations from being transmitted to the buildings. So where there are such places, especially in the city area, we install what we call floating slab tracks, FST. What are these floating slab tracks? If you look at this picture, okay, this is a case of a bored tunnel, and normally after the first stage of concrete below in the deeper blue, the FST is then installed above the first stage concrete, and it's normally seated on what we call bearings, and then followed by a floating slab track structure itself before the actual track itself is mounted. Now, what's the significance of this? As the train runs, the vibration in the train, instead of being transmitted to the surrounding, it gets dampened off by these dampers and what we call bearings here. So this is the way that it has actually prevented vibration from being transmitted to the surrounding buildings. And if you look at the next slide, again, this was a slide I showed earlier about the cluster of missing clause location. You'll find that if you then overlay this with the yellow sections, which are marked in yellow, the yellow section which is where the FST sections have been installed, you'll find that there is some correlation in terms of the location of the missing clause vis-a-vis the locations of the floating slab tracks. All right, but again, this is only a finding at the moment. We are not conclusively establishing that that this is the direct cause or contributory. We have to go to further review and evaluation of the matter. But there is some, at least it gives us some lead into studying the problem. And just for information, in terms of the way that the floating slab tracks are designed and installed, all right, it actually does not require, it only is designed for 50 years life. And about 10 years ago, SMRT did a sample inspection of one of this bearing, and from the inspection, it was found that the bearing was still in good condition. That was about 10 years ago. So this,
I think just to add that, yes, sample inspection, it is not like lifting a cover and then you get to see the bearings. This is a very different thing altogether. You actually have to cut into the track, drill down, and then extract the bearing. Right. So I want to say that this is not something that you do as part of your usual maintenance. Right? It was an effort 15 years ago where they went down to take a sample and to check on the condition of the sample versus what it was in the original condition.